April 29, 1996. Elland Road, Leeds. Minutes after Newcastle's 1-0 victory over Leeds United, Richard Keys and Andy Gray of Sky Sports are in the post-match studio. They cut to a live touchline interview with the Newcastle manager. Kevin Keegan is visibly agitated. His voice is rising. "I've kept really quiet, but I'll tell you something. He went down in my estimation when he said that. We have not resorted to that. But I'll tell you, you can tell him now if you're watching this, we're still fighting for this title, and he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it." The voice breaks on the word love. Just slightly. Just enough. The interview lasts less than 45 seconds. It was voted the most memorable moment of the first 20 years of the Premier League by the combined panel of BBC Sport and Sky Sports. Kevin Keegan died yesterday, July 20th, 2026, aged 75, 7 weeks after revealing a stage for cancer diagnosis. Newcastle United described him as the beating heart of Newcastle United for generations of supporters. And the thing the football world will discuss for years is not the 2 Ballons d'Or, not the European Cup, not the second division club he turned into Premier League title contenders in 4 years. It will discuss those 45 seconds at Elland Road. The voice breaking, the finger pointing at the camera, the love. This video is about why that is not a shame, and what it tells us about the most honest way any man ever existed in English football. Kevin Joseph Keegan was born on February 14, 1951, in Armthorpe, Doncaster. His father Joseph was a coal miner. His mother Doris raised the family in a working-class community in South Yorkshire. He grew up watching football, playing football, dreaming football. And when he was old enough to be assessed by professional clubs, Coventry City gave him a trial and decided he wasn't good enough. Too small, not physical enough. The profile that scouts and coaches had built for an English professional footballer of the era did not match what they saw in the boy from Armthorpe. He signed for Scunthorpe United in December 1967 for £35. Fourth-tier English football. The bottom of the pyramid. Bill Shankly, who had managed Liverpool to the First Division title and built one of the most formidable clubs in English football, watched Keegan play for Scunthorpe in 1971. He saw something that Coventry City had missed. He paid £33,000 for him and said, simply, "This boy will play for England." Within 6 years, the boy from the bottom tier was holding the European Cup above his head at the Stade de Rome. Liverpool 1977, the most coveted trophy in club football. A boy Coventry had turned away for being too small. If the story had ended there, or even at Hamburg, with the 2 Ballons d'Or in 1978 and 1979 that made him the only British player in history to win the award more than once, the legacy would have been uncomplicated. Magnificent player, improbable rise, 2 of the sport's highest individual honors. But the story didn't end there. And the reason it didn't is the reason this video matters. May 1984, St. James Park, Newcastle. Kevin Keegan's last game as a professional footballer. He had finished his playing career at Newcastle after spells at Hamburg and Southampton. The crowd of 36,000 came to say goodbye. And when the final whistle blew, Keegan was lifted into the air, not by teammates, not by supporters, but by a helicopter. He rose above St. James Park in full kit. 36,000 people watching from below. He had promised them he would never return as a manager. He was done with football in that role. He wanted to be remembered as a player, not to diminish the memory by coming back as something different. 8 years later, Newcastle United were in crisis. Not just struggling, threatening to fall into the 3rd division of English football for the first time in the club's history. The board needed a manager. Kevin Keegan returned in February 1992. He came back because Newcastle needed him. Not because the money was extraordinary, not because the project was obviously achievable, because the club that had sent him up in a helicopter 8 years earlier was in danger, and the pull of that was stronger than any promise he had made to himself. He promised them then that this time he would see it through. He would deliver. He would build something. And what he built between 1992 and 1996 is one of the most extraordinary things in the history of the English game. To understand what Keegan built at Newcastle between 1992 and 1996, you need a number. Not a trophy, a number. In January 1996, Newcastle United led the Premier League by 12 points. 12. In a 2-horse race between Newcastle and Manchester United, the most formidable club in English football under the most psychologically sophisticated manager of his era, Keegan's Newcastle had a 12-point lead. They had done it playing football that nobody associated with title-winning English clubs of the period. David Ginola on the left, running fullbacks ragged. Peter Beardsley creating behind striker. Les Ferdinand scoring. Philippe Albert defending with the elegance of a continental center-back. Tino Asprilla arriving from Colombia mid-season and immediately fitting the aesthetic of a team that refused to be dull. On the final day of the 1995-96 campaign, Keegan later told 442 the Premier League trophy was at St. James Park. The league brought a replica just in case we beat Spurs in our last game and Manchester United lost at Middlesbrough. But we could only draw, while United won at the Riverside and were handed the real trophy on the pitch. We never got to have a look at the replica. It was hidden away deep in the bowels of St. James Park, then whisked off without us ever catching a glimpse. 12 points. January. The trophy in the building. And then gone. What happened between January and May is the story that English football will never stop telling. Not because of what Newcastle lost. Plenty of clubs have lost title races from commanding positions. Because of the specific way Kevin Keegan lost it, and what that revealed about the only thing that ever truly defined him. Alex Ferguson's mind games are, in retrospect, a matter of public record. He made comments suggesting that clubs like Leeds and Nottingham Forest, who still had to play Newcastle, wouldn't try as hard against Keegan's side as they would against Manchester United. The implication, other clubs were helping Newcastle with their scheduling and effort levels, while United had to battle through without the same accommodation. The comments were, by any measure, below the standard of professional conduct. They were designed to get under Keegan's skin, to make him feel that the race was somehow rigged, that respect and fairness were being denied to him and his club. Ferguson understood something about Keegan that Keegan himself might not have fully understood, that the same passion which made Keegan an extraordinary player, an extraordinary motivator, an extraordinary manager, was also a vulnerability under sustained psychological pressure from a source he couldn't dismiss. Keegan cared too much, too visibly, to be able to let it go. On April 29, 1996, after Newcastle beat Leeds 1-0, their third consecutive victory, a result that left them level on points with United, Keegan sat in front of a Sky Sports camera and responded. He pointed at the camera. His voice broke. He said, "I will love it if we beat them. Love it." His players were sitting on the team coach, listening on the radio. While fans initially cheered the passion, what the football world remembers is the voice breaking, the moment the psychological pressure finally found the one crack it had been looking for. Ferguson watched it. He understood immediately what he had seen. Not a manager losing control, a man showing everything he had, everything he felt, in public, because it was impossible for him to be anything else. Keegan had kept quiet for weeks. He said so himself in the interview, "I've kept really quiet." The breaking wasn't sudden. It was the accumulation of every day he had held it in, finally released. Newcastle drew against Nottingham Forest. They drew against Tottenham on the final day. United won the title. 4 years later, a different building, a different ending. October 7, 2000. The old Wembley Stadium, London. England 0, Germany 1. The last competitive international match played at the original Wembley before demolition. Kevin Keegan was England manager. He had taken the job in February 1999, brought back from a coaching sabbatical, again by the pull of something he cared about deeply, again with a promise that this time would be different. England lost 1-0 to a Dietmar Hamann free kick. They were eliminated from World Cup 2002 qualifying in their own stadium, in the last match at a ground that had seen England win the World Cup in 1966. Keegan walked into the men's bathroom at Wembley. He found the FA's chief executive, Adam Crozier, and he told him he was resigning. "I can't motivate the players. I can't get the extra bit out of these players that I need. Not, the system isn't working. Not, we need different personnel. Not, the preparation has been wrong." The accusation was directed entirely inward. "I cannot motivate them. I cannot get the extra bit." The man who had motivated an entire city into believing a second division club could challenge Manchester United for the Premier League title was standing in a Wembley bathroom, telling his employer that he had lost the ability to make players feel what he needed them to feel. Gary Neville, who played under Keegan at that tournament, described him to his podcast audience this week. His honesty, his integrity, his enthusiasm every single day on the training pitch about how he wanted players to enjoy themselves and get the very best out of themselves. It felt like he was still a kid that played in the playground as a 7, 8-year-old. It never left him. That is not a description of a man who lost his ability to motivate. It is a description of a man who gave everything he had every day. and who on October 7, 2000, could not reconcile the gap between everything he was offering and what the players were producing. He didn't resign because he gave up. He resigned because he couldn't bear the distance between what he felt and what the team reflected back. Here is the fact about Kevin Keegan that this video is not going to leave unspoken because the football world has consistently buried it under the 45 seconds at Elland Road. Kevin Keegan won the Ballon d'Or in 1978 and 1979. He is the only British player in the history of football to have won the award more than once. The Ballon d'Or in 1978 went to a player who had just won the European Cup with Liverpool and then moved to Germany, not for money, though the money was significant, but because he wanted to test himself against the best football in continental Europe. He won the Bundesliga with Hamburg in 1978-79. He reached a European Cup final. In 2 consecutive years, the best player in European football was an English boy from Doncaster who was told at 16 he was too small to make it, who signed for £35 to play in the 4th tier, who was bought for £33,000 by a man who said, "This boy will play for England." That is not a footnote. It is the foundation of everything. The helicopter and the 45 seconds and the bathroom at Wembley are the moments English football remembers about Keegan. They remember them because they are vivid, emotional, and perfectly expressive of who he was. But who he was, the full picture, includes 2 consecutive years of being the best footballer on a continent with Platini, Zico, Cruyff, and Beckenbauer. The most decorated individual award in sports history, won twice by a man who had been told he was too small and signed for £35. That Kevin Keegan and the Kevin Keegan of the 45 seconds at Elland Road are the same man. That is the point. Yesterday morning, July 20th, 2026, Kevin Keegan died. He had been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 7 weeks earlier. He was surrounded by his wife and daughters when he passed. Tino Asprilla, the Colombian forward who played under Keegan at Newcastle during the Entertainers era, spoke for many who had played for him. "I am absolutely heartbroken. Kevin wasn't just a football manager to me. Through his passion, belief, and love for the game, he inspired so many people, myself included. He taught me that football is about much more than winning. It's about passion, loyalty, hope, and never giving up." Asprilla's words are the most precise description of Keegan's legacy that anyone will give in the coming days. Not the 2 Ballons d'Or, not the European Cup, not the 12-point lead that became a 2nd-place finish, not the bathroom at Wembley. Passion, loyalty, hope, never giving up. These are not the qualities of a man who failed. They are the qualities of a man who refused to be anything other than what he was, and who, at every turn when those qualities brought him to the edge of something great, discovered that the same qualities that got him there were the ones that made the final step complicated. The 45 seconds at Elland Road are not the story of a manager who cracked under pressure. They are the story of a man who could not pretend that the race wasn't hurting him, that the injustice wasn't real, that the passion wasn't consuming him. He said, "I will love it if we beat them." And he meant it with everything he had. That is not weakness. That is the most honest sentence anyone has ever said on a touchline. Go back to the beginning. April 29th, 1996. The voice breaking. Newcastle United's statement yesterday said, "Kevin's impact will not be measured by appearances or results. It will live on in the memories he created with club and country, the dreams he inspired wherever he went, and the generations of supporters around the world who fell in love with football because of him." Not appearances, not results, memories and dreams. That is the club that had the trophy in the building in January 1996, writing the man's obituary 30 years later. Not mentioning the title they didn't win, mentioning the dreams. Here is the paradox that Keegan spent his entire career living, and that this video was built to describe. The same quality that made Kevin Keegan extraordinary, his complete inability to hide what he felt, his total exposure of passion and belief and pain, was the quality that cost him the Premier League title and ended his England managership in a bathroom at Wembley. But it was also the quality that made 36,000 people come to St. James Park to watch him leave in a helicopter. That made Tino Asprilla say he learned from Keegan that football is about passion and loyalty and never giving up. That made Gary Neville say this week that Keegan felt like a kid who never grew up from the playground at 7 years old. The question this video exists to ask is the one it cannot answer. Was that a weakness? Or was it the most honest way any man ever existed in a sport that almost always rewards those who hide what they feel? Kevin Keegan never hid it. Not once. Not in 45 seconds at Elland Road. Not in a bathroom at Wembley. Not in a helicopter over St. James Park. Not in Hamburg when he won the Ballon d'Or twice and nobody in England paid enough attention. He loved it. He always did. You could always tell. Kevin Keegan won 2 Ballons d'Or. The only British player in history to do it twice. The football world remembers 45 seconds at Elland Road. Is that unfair? Or is it, in a specific way, exactly what he would have wanted? A man known not for the trophies, but for the moment he showed everything he felt, live, on camera, in front of the whole country? Tell me in the comments what Kevin Keegan means to you. If you saw those 45 seconds live, or if this is the first time you've heard them described, I want to know what you take from the story.